Hello, I'm Sergeant Ray Poole, Media Services Officer for Central Indiana. Welcome to the Indiana State Police Public Information Program. Today we're going to talk about common sense driving in wintertime. Today we're going to talk with Sergeant Mike Nichols from the Indiana State Police Training Division. He's going to give us some common sense approach on driving on snow, ice, and how to prepare your vehicle for the winter weather conditions. As you know, living in Indiana, weather conditions can change very quickly and very rapidly. So without saying any further, please stay tuned and we'll be back in a few minutes. Thank you for staying tuned and welcome back to the show. Like I mentioned earlier, we have Sergeant Mike Nichols of the Indiana State Police Training Division with us today. Mike, thanks for coming to the show today.
Thank you very much for having me, Ray.
We're going to talk about a little bit of common sense approach today on driving, especially in wintertime. These tips that you're going to give us basically fit every season of the year, but especially during the wintertime.
Right. Wintertime, it's be really bad to get stranded, out in the middle of a desolate area, stuck in the snow or something like that, where the temperatures could have an effect on you.
Now, before we get into our topic today, I want to know a little bit about yourself and kind of share with the viewers.
Okay. Came on the state police in 1988, was assigned to the Peru post for 6 years, patrolling primarily Tipton and Howard County. And then I was promoted to sergeant's rank in the training division. And part of my duties there include teaching our troopers how to drive.
Now, where did you develop an interest in driving, and especially, our viewers may not know, but driving a police car is a little different from driving a regular private vehicle, right?
Yes, it is. There's a lot more things that we have to be aware of while driving a police car. We include vehicle dynamics, how to handle the vehicle in emergency situations, so we protect, ourselves as well as the rest of the motoring public.
And with that, there's some tips that people need to try to develop as an everyday habit. Like I mentioned earlier, not just for wintertime, but just for now. What are some of the things you can do to get your car prepared or your vehicle prepared for driving, especially during the winter?
A lot of times during the winter, one of the main problems is the vehicle breaks down mechanically. And a lot of those things can be avoided if you plan ahead. And some of those things are make sure you have like a fresh oil change, make sure your fluids are topped off. One of the main problems it seems like you run into after they put salt down and everything on the roadway, you're getting a lot of that road grime up on your windshield. People run out of windshield washer fluid in their car. And it's something very simple, $1, $2, at each, your local convenience store or any kind of store you can purchase regular washer fluid. It's usually this time of year runs about $1.50 a gallon.
Right.
Or you could get more of the premium type things, and this is actually a special de-icer washer fluid. That's better for real cold temperatures.
Yes, I find out even with my police cruiser or my personal vehicle that the wiper blades tend to freeze up, so this type would be a little better for that, right?
Exactly, and there's different manufacturers, different brands out on the market, and one's not necessarily better than the other, but just need to read the labels and see what it can do for you.
Do you suggest carrying blankets and candy and different things like that, so that if you do get stranded out on the interstate for a long period of time, or when you get onto the ditch and you may not have help out in the rural part of Indiana? Patrolling Tipton and Howard County, we know that's pretty rural and gets pretty snowy up there.
It does. There's a lot of basic things you can carry with you that don't take up a lot of room. You can get a small shovel that you can carry, blankets, candy. There are things, something as simple as a sock hat. Mm-hmm. If you put a sock hat on top of your head, experts say that you lose 85% of your body heat through your head.
Right.
If you're stuck in a ditch and if you're out of gas or something, you want to try and retain as much body heat as you can. So simple thing is a stocking cap, or there's also different portable heat sources out there that you can buy. They're very reasonable priced, at any, department store.
Do you recommend staying with your vehicle, or do you recommend taking off and leaving your vehicle in this type of weather?
In this type of weather, in extreme cold, I recommend staying with the vehicle. It'll, may be a little time for us to get someone there, but between us, we have communications with State Highway Department. A lot of the county highways have contact, with their local sheriff's department or city police agencies. So it's just a matter of time someone's going to be by. And there's some other things you can do to help us realize that you're there, such as their call police signs, maybe tie a handkerchief or something to your antenna.
Right.
Some people pop their hoods, on their cars to signify that they're stranded.
Correct.
Or something as a reflective triangle or a road flare, something to grab our attention.
Those are all great, helpful tips that Mike shared with us, and most of it's common sense approach, but people tend to forget about it, and that's what we're trying to do, kind of refresh our memories. And we have some more tips coming from Sergeant Mike Nichols from the Training Division, and we will be back in a few minutes. Stay tuned. Thanks for staying tuned, and welcome back to the show. We're talking with Sergeant Mike Nichols of the Indiana State Police Training Division, and we're talking about a common sense approach on driving and how to be safe in wintertime conditions. As we know, the conditions in the winter in Indiana change pretty quick, and we're going to talk about pre-planning your trip. Some things that you need to do as far as getting ready to go. We talked about getting your vehicle prepared, but now we're going to talk about actually getting ready to make that trip, such as making an itinerary.
Exactly. First off, you want to leave early enough. You have plenty of time. You're not pushed speed-wise. But some of the things you can do before you leave the house is check the radio, check TV stations for road and weather information. I mean, they have reporters all around, the different areas of the state. So what better source to get the information from? And they can also predict, how the weather's going to be.
And also, since we're talking about that point, we would like to really stress upon not calling the Indiana State Police for road and weather conditions. That is something that is, like Mike just mentioned, left up to the local radio stations and television stations. They're caught up just as much as we are, or sometimes more ahead of what the weather's going to be. Another thing, we want you to call the state police if you do have an emergency, and that's what those lines are dedicated for.
Exactly. And when they're tied up with people wanting, information on road conditions or school closings, things like that, we can't talk on the phone to the people who actually need the emergency assistance while they're out there.
But another thing which we did say is itinerary. We've worked the road and worked post command countless numbers of times where people don't know where their loved ones are. Nobody knows where they're going, or nobody knows where they're at. And if they're 15, 20, 30 minutes late getting home, it's kind of nice to give a little courtesy call.
It is. And if you have a long trip planned, or even just a normal commute to and from work, if you could have that route that you normally take already, written out, pre-designated, also include that in that your vehicle description and license plate number. Because a lot of times people will say, well, he drives a big blue car, and there's a lot of blue cars out there, folks. So, but if we had vehicle description, who makes it, what kind of body style, and a license plate, that gives us a little bit more information to go on.
And listeners should keep that information somewhere handy where everyone in the family knows where it's at. Don't hide it, and don't write it down and hide it somewhere. Put it out visible and leave it out on the countertop or in the kitchen somewhere.
Right. I mean, magnet on the side of the refrigerator or next to the phone.
Now, some of the other things that we want people to be familiar with is just knowing the road conditions. And when you get out there, especially in the morning times, the bridges and overpasses are pretty icy in this time of year.
Yes, they are. Some of the things people don't realize, even though the road crews have been out there for a while, they've put a lot of salt down, been scraping a lot of snow off the road, there's still a propensity for ice to form, especially on the bridges and overpasses. So, because the problem is with the bridges and overpasses, air currents can flow underneath the bridges, and it's kind of like using the difference between a shelf in your refrigerator and the little crisper section in the bottom. The shelf in the refrigerator, the air currents can go all the way around it. The crisper section, all it does is it's sitting in a cool environment, and it's insulated by the refrigerator bottom, much like the ground insulates the road as well.
Absolutely. And another thing that we want to try to mention is the black ice that's out there. I mean, in the wintertime, it's pretty bad, and when you mentioned the roads freeze over, people don't realize that ice is out there.
Right, and it could come in sections too. The black ice, basically, easiest way to explain black ice is like a sponge, and your road surfaces are very porous, like a sponge. And a lot of times the moisture may not be on top of the surface, but it's trapped in the different sections, the different porous areas. And then when it gets cold enough, usually at nighttime when the sun's not out, then that could freeze over. And one of the warning signs of that is kind of a sheen to the roadway, kind of like a satin finish, like on a photograph. And, a lot of times, even if it's been, real sunny out and the snow's melting, the runoff from that snow can fill up these surfaces and then cause slippery conditions.
What do you suggest people do when they get in that kind of situation? They hit the ice, and all of a sudden some people panic and they try to lock their brakes up, or some people try to accelerate and their back end goes around and catches them.
Right. The thing that really catches people off guard on the ice is when they try and make sudden vehicle movements. They try and brake and swerve to avoid something, or speed up, like you say, and the rear end may come around on their car, as long as they don't make any sudden moves. It's like, you wouldn't want to go out and take off running on ice because you wouldn't be able to, control your speed or control yourself. But if you're walking at a normal or slower pace, then you usually do okay.
Very excellent tips from Sergeant Mike Nichols. Now, we're going to be coming back with the program. We're going to talk about other things to make yourself more aware of the driving conditions and get your car physically ready, like removing snow. Stay tuned for that information, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Thank you for staying tuned. In a few minutes, we're going to post the website address and the phone numbers to the road and weather conditions, so have pen and paper ready. Once again, we have Sergeant Mike Nichols here. We're talking about road conditions, and we're going to actually talk about how to drive on the slick surfaces. Mike, one of the things that we like to mention is to give people a cushion, give yourself a little room between the vehicles. Can you expound on that a little bit?
Right. Depending on the road conditions and also what speed you're traveling, you want to leave at least 2 to 6 seconds space between you and the vehicle in front of you. A lot of times people say, yeah, but if I leave that space there, then other people start cutting over in front of me. Well, you have to think about it this way. What's your ultimate goal? You want to go from point A to point B. It doesn't really matter if people get in front of you or not. Just keep backing up, give a little more space cushion, be courteous to other drivers, try not to push them, and especially the people driving the snow plows, you want to give them a chance to get the roads clear.
Absolutely. Now, we all know people that have four-wheel drive vehicles tend to think they can drive a little faster, a little better, and is that a myth, or is that something that's absolutely true?
They may have better control over the vehicle, but they still fall prey to the same, vehicle dynamics that we do in rear-wheel drive or front-wheel drive vehicles. So it's kind of a fallacy or a false sense of security, I think.
Right, and I know they pull out of the snow a little bit better, but once you get on the ice, your vehicle is just as vulnerable as the rest.
Exactly. I mean, they'll just go sliding as quick as anybody else.
Absolutely. Speed's another factor. When it's slippery out and it's slick out and the snow's out on the ground, people really should be consciously slowing down.
Exactly. I mean, anytime the temperature's, around freezing or below, there's always a possibility there's ice out there or snow. So, you have to drive appropriately. Just because the road's clear and, the area where you live, like we talked about earlier, that bridge or overpass may sneak up on you with a little wet spot.
Absolutely. People also need to be quite aware that emergency vehicles are out there trying to work. Like you mentioned, snow plows, ambulance drivers, fire trucks, and police officers. Can you touch upon that some?
Give us room to work is all we ask for. I mean, we're out there. We don't really want to be outside our car on a cold day or cold night, as much as anybody else, but we're out there to serve the people and have a job to do. But, when you see a triangle or a road flare or an emergency vehicle with its lights on, or even just, a citizen sitting on the side of the road with their hazard lights on, you have to think about they may be out around their vehicle working. So you need to slow down. If there's a left lane to get over to, you need to do that as well.
Mike, I want to thank you for being here. You've given us many tips today, excellent advice, and I want to thank you for taking your time out and being here on the show today. With that, I would like to mention, please have an itinerary ready. Have your vehicles prepared for the icy cold weather. And also, this is just information for year-round, so be prepared in the summer, spring, or even winter. Also, let people know what you're going to do. If you're not coming home from work and it's icy out, please give them a phone call. Cell phones are popular now. Call before you leave work. And also, like Mike mentioned earlier, when you see an emergency vehicle pull off on the side of the road, please give them room to work. If you can't slow down or move over, be courteous and give that officer or that firefighter some room. The life you save will be theirs. Thank you very much. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye. Nah, that was too staged. I was pointing too much.
The king of the ditch.
3, 2, 1. Welcome back to the show, and it's nice to be back inside.
Oh, it is. A little bit better in here.
Oh, yeah. Just for you people that need the phone numbers and website to the state police for the road and weather conditions, get a pen and paper ready, and we'll have those numbers up on the screen in a few minutes. I want to talk to you in a few minutes, Mike, about driving conditions and actually getting in your vehicles and driving, such as cushion and space. Can you talk about a little bit of cushion as far as two vehicles?
Sure. While you're traveling down the road, even in good weather, you want to have a space cushion of at least 2 to 6 seconds following distance. And as weather gets worse, then you want to increase that. A lot of times, it'll take a vehicle up to 5 times stopping distance on poor surfaces, ice-covered or snow-covered, roads. So you need to keep that in mind as well. But, a lot of people, when I tell them that, they say, yeah, but if I leave that cushion, other people will jump in front of me. And I say, well, what's your ultimate goal? You want to get from point A to point B. And, if so many people get in front of you, then that's fine, as long as you arrive safely at your destination.
And that's my point. You want to get to point A to point B in a safe manner. Another thing, not only are we stressing, controlled speed and the dry conditions, but definitely in the snowy and icy conditions.
Right. I mean, it should make you, because of the adverse weather, you need to be more aware of your surroundings, what's going on around you. And including that are, we need to watch out for people driving the snowplows, those big yellow monsters, as some people say.
They're doing a service for us and the citizens of the state of Indiana, so we need to be cautious and careful of those folks, too.
Exactly. I don't want to be involved in a crash with one of those. And, just stay back, give them a good distance. That way, they can get the salt or the abrasives down the road, and they can get the roadways cleared.
Now, this is another thing that I notice out, especially in this type of weather, and all the four-wheel drive people are going to probably not be happy with this, but they tend to think they can drive a tad bit faster in these type of conditions than the people with regular two-wheel drive cars.
Right. A lot of, four-wheel drive doesn't have any more traction necessarily on an ice-covered road than someone in a two-wheel drive. Four-wheel drive's to help out in the deep snow, But the thing is, because of that deep snow, you can't, make out any obstacles. So you can't really get any advantage or any speed. By having a four-wheel drive, the only advantage you have is less likely to get stuck.
And I have noticed quite a few four-wheel drive vehicles actually trapped in the ditches and in the snow because they think they have that invincibility to them.
They do. If someone's coming around you to pass, leave a little room for them too, so they can get over safely.
And that's the main point, to be safe. We had a little fun with the four-wheel drives and just talking about different things, but on a serious note, when you see emergency vehicles out doing their jobs, I've said it enough, could you pass that same information on?
Right. When, an ambulance or fire truck or even a wrecker, is stopped on the side of the road, when you see one of those triangles out or a road flare out, you want to give them plenty of room to work. Those triangles or road flares are a sign, a hazard is ahead. So you want to slow down your speed. If you can change lanes, if you're on a multi-lane road, you want to do that. Give them plenty of room to work. I mean, we don't want to be out of our car in cold weather as much as anybody else. So the quicker we can do things, the safer we are, the safer we can get back in our car too.
And that even goes for people that are just broke down on the interstates or county roads or even, U.S. roads. Want those people to be safe also.
Right. You see someone sitting there with their hazard lights on, give them a little room to work. They may be working on their car. They may be putting some, traction material down or something where they've gotten stuck. So.
Well, Mike, you've given us some excellent tips today, and I appreciate you being here. Thanks for being at the show.
Thanks for having me, Ray.
That's Sergeant Mike Nichols, Indiana State Police Training Division, on winter driving tips. Mike's given us some excellent information on giving us an itinerary when you leave your home. Make sure people know where you're going. On speed on ice and snowy conditions, slow your speed down and give yourself some cushion. Also, Mike's giving us information on how to have your vehicle prepared, such as having blankets, having your car winterized for fluids and oil changes and different things for your tires. And the main important message that we do have today is when you see an emergency services vehicle out on the roadway, please give that person and that officer room to work. If you can't move over, at least slow down. Use common sense. The life you save will be that officer's. Thank you for watching the show. Bye-bye. Welcome back to the show. We're here at 21st and Post Road at the Indiana State Police Museum. As we were talking, the snow is a very beautiful thing to look at in Indiana, but it also can be very dangerous, especially to operate a vehicle upon the snow and ice.
Exactly. And some of the things besides your itinerary and the pre-planning of your trip that people need to do anytime we get snow or some type of winter precipitation or ice, go out and warm their car up ahead of time. Make sure they thoroughly clean their windshield. Invest in a good ice scraper. And not just a little hole that you can look through as you're driving down the road, hoping your defroster will take care of the rest of it.
Right.
But besides cleaning the windshield, knock the ice off the wipers. Yeah, also get this snow off the hood of your vehicle as well. Because once you get your windshield cleared, it's going to be warm out, or the windshield will be warm. This snow's just going to blow up on your windshield. It's going to limit your visibility. And, in any kind of weather, visibility plays an important part while you're driving. Make sure the snow's away from the headlights while you're doing, while you're out cleaning off your car. Get it off the top of the vehicle if there's a chance that it's going to blow and block the back windshield. And then anytime you pull into a gas station or you clean your windshield, how many times do you clean the headlights? Anytime, there's grime or dirt, grime, or even bugs in the summer, it gets on your windshield.
Right.
They also get on your headlights, and that limits your visibility.
Now, people have a false sense a perception of when your car is warm, they automatically think that snow is just going to blow onto your windshield and it just might melt. That's not true. They need to actually make sure that all that's blown off by investing in what you have there in a nice scraper right here, or even use an ice scraper, or even a broom such as this. If nothing else, take a few minutes extra time to prepare your car for a travel trip.
Exactly, and I know some people are concerned about the finish of their cars, and a broom may scrape it, or scratch it. Well, then they can just get a dust mop, or simple, solution, just wrap a towel around the broom.
Absolutely, and those are some great tips that you can share with, not just keep to yourself, but share with your family and especially your new drivers. I mean, patrolling the roads of Indiana, how many times have you seen people scrape out just a little porthole just to look out of?
Exactly. It's kind of like a tank driver. They just have a little square to look out of, and that's it. But your vision is hindered, by other blind spots in the vehicle. Kind of helps set yourself up to succeed.
And with that, it's also pretty dangerous to drive like that because there are still school children out catching the school buses and running across the street trying to go to school that time of morning.
Exactly.
Excellent tips from Sergeant Mike Nichols on how to prepare your vehicle for wintertime driving. Stay tuned and we'll have more of the show back in a few minutes.